Welcome everyone. We hope you're all staying safe out there. Welcome to today's Acumatica year-end closing webcast. Presenting today, we have Jose Romero, our Senior Project Manager, and Alex Sullivan, who are going to take us through the Acumatica year-end closing process, just to ensure all of our clients, you close your year-end with ease. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Jose, take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching this webinar that we have prepared for you. We really appreciate being part of our NexTec customers family. And on this section, we will teach you how to perform the period closing and year-end closing in the Acumatica modules. Again, my name is Jose Romero. I'm Senior Project Manager in NexTec, and Alex Sullivan will be with me as well, Senior Consultant, and will present. Today topics, part one is, I will cover part one, AP closing, AR closing, and banking closing. Part two will be covered by Alex Sullivan, inventory closing, fixed asset closing, general ledger closing, and end year closing. For accounts payable month, this is the first part of this session, will be AP, AR, and banking. This is our checklist, accounts payable and processing. That we need to do is, before we perform the closing, we need to do these 4 activities. Complete and release any incomplete PO receipts, generate recurring transactions, release any unreleased transactions, do the reconciliation AP with general ledger, and finally we can close the period. From AR, we perform these 3 tasks before the closing: recurring transactions, release any unreleased transactions, and do the reconciliation between AR and GL. And then finally, we close the period. In banking, we release any unreleased transaction, we do the reconciliation bank statements, and we close the period. Let's do this process in Acumatica, starting from accounts payable. I have Acumatica open here, so we are closing accounts payable. Okay, first step was we generate recurring transaction. We go to this process, generate recurring transactions. We select the end of the month. We are closing November, and the system shows we have 2 transactions that are recurring transactions in accounts payable. I would select these 2 and run the process. Okay, so this is 50% complete. Perfect, this is complete. Then next activity is we have a specific option to close the period in accounts payable. We go there, we generated already our recurring transactions. We click here, the period on November to close. Before we close, we have access here to see unreleased documents. Okay, we can check the unreleased documents for this period, November. Okay, so we have 3 batches that we need to release. We can access those directly from here, or we can navigate to the accounts payable module and say release AP documents. Okay, we mark all. We can click here to select all, and then we click on release. Perfect. Okay, so this is completed. Then We can close now the period. We come back to this transaction, to this screen, close financial periods. We select the period. We are really release it and release the documents. We can double check one more time. So nothing to release. Okay, and then we process. Perfect. So this process is completed, and then the new period is the period of November was closed. Okay, then it leave the next period, December, open. That was the part for AP, and then let's continue from account receivable. In account receivable, we need to do similar process, generate any recurring transactions, release unreleased transactions, and do the reconciliation of AR with general ledger, and then we close the period. Okay. So we go to account receivable. We check if we have recurring transactions. We select end of the period. Yes, we have one recurring transaction in AR. So we run the process. Perfect. So you complete the process. So one of the other activities we need to do is make sure everything is released in the module. We can run our process from here. We select all the transactions from November, release. Perfect. Now let's go to the close period. There is a report I mentioned, which is the process of do the reconciliation between the AR module and GL. We ran this report, AR balance account, for the period of November, the period that we are closing. We can run this for a specific branch or for all the branches. In this case, there is a grand total here. Okay, and we have subtotals by account. There is only one AR account, and then we have all the customers. The grand total here on this report is 13 millions. This is we should have the same total in GL for that account. That we do is we check this account 1130 in GL. We go to finance, and we are going to execute the accounts detail option. Okay, so we search the same account, AR 11000. Okay, and the same balance, 13 million, should be touched with the same amount that we saw in the subledger report. If there is difference, we can check specifically. One of the reasons could be transactions were entered only in GL, or there are transactions that are in the subledger that went to a different account. This is the type of reconciliation that we do part of the closing. Okay, let's go back to the module, the closing periods. So we click on the period here. We double check if there is any unreleased transactions. No. Okay, and then we process. Perfect, that process is completed there. So we have closed the period of November. Now, let's do banking closing. Similar process, release any unreleased transactions, do the bank reconciliation, and then we close the period. So in banking, we navigate to the banking module, cash management. We check if we have any unreleased transactions. No, so that's, and then we perform the reconciliation statement for the bank account, for all the bank accounts. Let's do a sample. For example, if I pick this account, it has, we select the end of November, the period that we are doing the reconciliation. And that we need to do there is a mark with a paper, with the statement that we have printed. We mark this manually here to make sure that everything matches. And then if there is difference, the system is going to carry over this difference when we release and complete this batch. That's the process to monitor manually. There is other option to do automatically, but we need to have the statement, upload as a file, but it has to be with the right format. Okay, but this is two options there. This is the manual option to mark and then release. And then after we have done any of these two options, we go to the process, close financial period, and we mark the period. We check one more time if there is any unreleased documents, and then we process the closing. Perfect. At this point, the period is closed. We did the closing from AR, AP, and banking. That's 3 steps complete the first part of this this section. And now, thank you for listening. Now I will switch to Alex Sullivan to continue with the second part.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about the second piece of the year-end closing now. Thank you for handing it over, Jose. And the first piece that we're really going to jump into is going to be our inventory module. We're going to take 2 steps here. And first, we're going to release our inventory documents, anything that may be stuck in the system that didn't get released originally. And then we're going to validate some of our subledger balances to the GL to make sure everything looks right before we close. Slightly different than what you saw Jose demos. We're not going to close out each of these individual modules at this point. We're going to show that master financial company functionality where you can close these all in one place at the end. Okay. And with that being said, let's jump right into it. So the first thing we want to do is come to our release IN document screen, and it does look like we have a few extra documents in here that didn't get released at the end of our period. So we're going to go through and we can check them individually, but since we want to release everything here to close our period, we're going to go ahead and click release all. Once these are released, it's going to go through and update our general ledger with any inventory changes from these transactions, as well as those individual inventory subledgers and any costing information related to that. With that completed, we can move on to our next step, and we can go to our inventory valuation report. This one's particularly helpful because what it'll do is it'll break down all of the individual inventory items by the individual sub-account. And we can determine whether we want to run this in summary or detail. We usually prefer summary because, again, you're looking at all of your items. You can run this item by item, but it just takes significantly more time depending on the amount of quantities you track in your system. So once this generates, we'll take a look at one of the accounts that comes up, and we can start with our 12000 account right here with this sub. And all we need to do is really copy this information right over here into our account details screen, similar to what you saw Jose do previously. We'll put in our sub account as 000. And we can go ahead and run this and make sure that those balances match up. And it looks like they do for us. So there's nothing else we need to do at this point for the inventory module. Next, we'll hop back into our slides, and we're going to move on to fixed assets. For fixed assets, we do have a few more steps. So what we're going to do first is we're going to convert any purchases to assets. So what this is going to do is any bills that we may have in the system that purchased a fixed asset, we can have the system automatically generate and create that for us as long as we define a few defaults. Next, we're going to calculate depreciation, and that's going to be on any of these new assets, as well as any of the historical ones that may not have been depreciated for this period. Lastly, we're really going to go through and release those transactions, and we'll see how they affect our FA balance by GL account and compare that to our account detail one more time, just to make sure everything is tying out in the system before we go and close everything else. So first we'll start over here on our convert purchases to asset screen, and we're going to choose which asset we want to convert. In this case, we're looking at converting this one here right at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and check that. We're going to determine the asset class that we want to put this into, and this particular item was computer equipment. You'll see once we populate that down here, we're creating our new asset. If you guys manually number your assets, you may have to populate this manually, but in our system right now, that's going to be auto-populated. We're also going to choose a department to determine which cost center this is going to go to. With that all set up, we can go ahead and click process. I'll also note you do have the ability to change or override amounts or dates or descriptions or anything like that at this point, but we're just going to leave all those defaults. Excellent. So now that that new asset has been created, we're going to go ahead and calculate depreciation. And it looks like we actually have some previous unreleased transactions from our last period. So we're going to go ahead into our release FA transactions. We do see that purchase that we just created in here. So we're going to go ahead and release that to complete the conversion of that asset from the bill to a fixed asset. We can hop back into our depreciation. Just give this a quick refresh. Now we see it looks like there is several periods we need to depreciate, and we're going to run this all the way through December, and it looks like there's quite a few assets that haven't been depreciated yet. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to process everything here. Once this is completed, we're going to move back to that release FA transaction screen just to release anything that's left in here. I will note that last step of releasing FA transactions is optional. We do have the ability in Acumatica to allow these things to automatically release or set up a schedule to release these in the background. Excellent. It looks like that completed with no errors, so we can go ahead and close this. And we'll move right into our release fixed asset transactions. And we see a transaction from every asset we depreciated, as well as several from that new asset that we created to catch us up into the correct period. And again, we're going to go ahead and click release all in here. With all of our fixed asset values updated and depreciation ran all the way through the end of the year, we can do the same kind of comparison that we did in all of the other modules. So we'll wait one more second for this to finish up its post-processing, and then we'll hop over into our FA balance by GL account, and we'll take a look and make sure everything posted correctly. I'll go ahead and run this for December, and then click Run Report. And it looks like our fixed assets are spread out for a few different classes, but we're going to start right here at the top. We'll change our periods to December. And our account and sub-account combination. And it looks like we are seeing the correct balance for the sum of these two assets in this account, so this ties out correctly. Okay. From there, we're going to move to our last slide. and that is going to be our general ledger month-end process. What we're going to do is we're going to generate recurring transactions, and then we're going to release those transactions directly into the GL. And I'm going to show you guys some optional reports that you can run that'll help you tie out. Whether you need to issue financial reports for any accounting or legal reasons or tax reasons, or maybe you just want to go through and take a look at all of your balances to see, start planning your budget for next year. Once we complete that, we're going to go into the final year-end step and close all of the remaining periods open in the system, as well as double check that none of the other modules have any unposted documents left for us to grab. Okay. So we'll start over here on our generate recurring transaction screen. Now it looks like we have a few different transactions that we need to run. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the execution date for this into December, just to make sure we're catching any of ours. We'll set them to run on execution date. We'll just go ahead and run all of these. Excellent. And we're going to double check as well, just to make sure there's not any at the month end. Excellent. It looks like we're good. So we don't have any more that we need to run at this point. So we're going to go ahead and click release all on the transactions that we've just generated. Excellent. It looks like everything has processed. So with that, our general ledger module should now be closed. We do have a few options if we want to go and check to make sure that everything is tying out properly. And we can do that with our trial balance summary, our trial balance details, or any of the custom financial statements that you guys may have in your system. I'm just going to take a look at our trial balance summary briefly so we can see some of our account balances for December and double check that everything is looking correct. If we have missed anything, depending on how your site is set up, you may have that 13th period where we can continue adjustments even after it's closed. So we take a quick look, our trial balance checks out, everything looks good, and we're going to go ahead and move into our master financial calendar. The first thing we want to do here is open up the periods for next year. So on my master financial calendar, I'm going to go ahead and click Actions, Open Periods. You'll see it's bringing me to 2021, our next year, and I'm going to go ahead and say we want to open January and February at this point. We'll close that. And now with those closed, or with those open, we want to go back and close the 2020 periods. So I change my action to close here, and it'll show me all of the open periods I have remaining for 2020. We're going to go ahead and close this out all the way through the end of the year now that we've checked our trial balance and everything looks good. What you'll notice is slightly different about what you saw from Jose is on the Manage Financial Period screen, we do have the ability to close all of the modules at once. So instead of going module by module, you do have the option in Acumatica to come to one place, click our Process All button, and do this in one step. We're going to go ahead and click OK. Hopefully we shouldn't have any unposted documents if we've released everything through those individual modules already. Looks like we are getting a little surprise. So let's take a look at our inventory module. Let's make sure there's no unreleased IN docs in here. Does not look like it. Now let's see if anything comes up in our unposted documents report. And it does. It looks like we have a much older transfer that's stuck in here. And we're just going to go ahead and delete this one. We'll say that this was an accident somebody entered and they did not mean to. So we'll go ahead and remove it. And now we're going to try running this one more time with those unposted documents removed. All right, It looks like this time there was not anything left in the system preventing us from closing. So we've closed successfully, and you see there's no more periods to close in 2020. We do make a mistake, we do always have the option to reopen periods. So we can come back here and open this to allow posting, or we can physically lock the period once it is closed, and that'll just prevent anybody from making additional postings depending on the security that you have set up for your financial module. And now with that, our Acumatica system is closed for 2020, and we wrap up this presentation. I appreciate everybody for coming by and watching. Thank you so much for your time.